So you use that word to each his own a lot, man. I have a theory about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, let's talk about it.
I don't believe it's a real solid maxim.
Okay.
Because, my state of mind, my frame of mind, my life experience, everything that I've gone through in life in some way or another either positively affects people or negatively affects people. So to each his own is like, for instance, with this thing with abortion, right?
Yeah.
Just say there was only 9 people on the planet believe that you shouldn't have abortion, but these people have lived their lives. They've had these concepts and beliefs their whole lives, and then they become Supreme Court justices, and 9 people affect the lives of over 300 million people. So in that case, if you were to say to each his own, that means that what those 9 people, believe, that their belief system, their mentality, their religion, their everything that they've brought to the table doesn't matter, and it really does.
Boom, y'all. We back with another episode of Evolving Through Experience, where we discussing everything growth, all the intangibles, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, and beyond. Evolving is the only option. At the end of the day, if we're not evolving today is a great day to start, because if we're not evolving, we're dissolving. So today, guys, we have a special guest. We have my guy, Magnanymous. How you feeling, bro?
I'm feeling wonderful, man. How about yourself?
I'm feeling great, bro. Since we started off like this, obviously, we just started off in a great way. First time for everything.
Right.
Let's get straight into it, bro. I want to ask you. I want you to break down this name, bro. I think I have my own perceptions of what I think it means, but my perceptions doesn't matter. I want you to break it down, obviously, because it's your name, it's your identity.
Magnanimous is Latin.
Okay.
2 words: magnus, meaning great, and animus, meaning soul and mind. That's the root of the word magnanimous, but it has other meanings as well. One of the meanings is someone who was very kind and generous, especially towards a less powerful person. Someone who was forgiving, merciful, philanthropic, also handsome. It has a lot of different meanings, man. And so what I've tried to do over my life is, study the name, what it means, what it represents, and let that kind of like be a representation of who and what I am and what I bring to the table of life,
Nah, facts. And with that being said, that's on your birth certificate?
Yeah, it's my name.
So okay. So I didn't know, because sometimes, and I think that's okay even if it wasn't, because I think sometimes we've been given identities that may not be who we are. So being that it is on your birth certificate, I think that's a great thing too. So that just says a lot even about your parents, because was it your mom? Obviously, I'm sure it was a compare. Did they both choose that name, or how did that work? Because that says a lot about your father.
My father gave me the name.
Okay, is that his name too, or
no?
Okay,
no.
So what was he, obviously, let's just go back for a minute. Obviously, for him to give you that name, that says a lot about him, obviously, because that means he was obviously tapped in. He already knew, obviously, what it meant. So are you, how did that happen? Did he ever tell you, like, how he came up with your name?
I think, there's a scripture in the Bible that says a good name is better than silver and gold.
Okay.
And so, knowing what the name represents, it gives you a sense of identity, a sense of purpose, and something to look toward. So, having a great name and then knowing what the name means gives you the opportunity to live up to that name.
Correct.
And so the characteristics and the attributes of Magnanimous are, really profound.
Correct.
And so ever since I was younger, that's been impressed upon me to be a really profound person. I always had a spiritual nature, intelligent. And that's the name, and knowing what it meant, it helped me strive to, greater levels of success.
Correct.
And put me in a position where, it's like I got this name, a great name, and now I have to live up to it.
So with that being said, now that's a dope name again, and I love that you explain exactly how your pops came up with it, and obviously you're living up to your name. So what were some experiences that really made you show an example or gave you the proof to show you, like, this is what my name stands for and this is what I represent? So what were some of those experiences that you had in your lifetime?
That's a good question. One of the experiences is that I was always forgiving. People would harm me, do me wrong, would say things about me, and I never would respond in kind. I always had the heart and the mindset to forgive. And so being that way for so long, that's one of the root meanings of the name of someone who was very kind and forgiving, especially towards a less powerful person. When I think about that, that's an attribute and a characteristic of God himself, because who is more forgiving than God? And we're all less powerful than God. And so I really realized that forgiving nature is really an attribute of God. And I wondered, or I realized that's the reason why my father gave me this name, is because, you know, it's really difficult to respond, but it's hard to forgive. It's hard to have empathy. And that inner work that you have to go through to become empathetic and forgiving, it gives you a certain state of awareness that other people just don't have, because the common person, when someone wrongs you, you try to get your lick back. You try to find a way to get back at the person.
Yeah.
But being forgiving, you know, and being empathetic, it requires a great deal of humility. And so sometimes, you know, you got to take something in order to be a great person. You got to be able to take pain. You got to be able to take frustration, et cetera, because that's what life is. You're going to face frustration in life. You're going to have a great deal of pain. But if you're responsive and you're reactive, then you can never see the purpose behind your pain.
Agreed.
So I think what really made the name really resonate with me and be like, okay, this is really who I am, because I was always that way anyway.
Correct. So you feel like, so it wasn't no experience that got you to there, or you was just always like that? Just like, do you feel like it was maybe, even if it was subconsciously, maybe through subliminal messages that got you there? Because for you to say that, I think that's dope to say that's how you always was. But do you feel like, because usually it's the other way around. It's usually the other way around. But for you to just automatically be like that, it wasn't no experiences prior that got you to be like, I can forgive people no matter how bad they done me.
It was always a part of my makeup.
Okay.
That's the beauty of it.
Definitely.
It was just a part of who I was. I just was like that. I don't know why, but ever since I was a child, I can think of times where family and friends rubbed me the wrong way, did things, and I always had this forgiving heart.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't been perfect, of course, in exercising the principle of forgiveness and empathy, but at the same time, I know I've been very, very proficient at it. And so the reason being, because it's not something that I really, really strive toward. It was something that was a part of my makeup.
No, that's dope, because honestly, I never heard anybody say that or even have that experience to say, like, that's always how I've been. Obviously, I knew you wasn't saying you're perfect at everything you've done, but just to say that's been the most part of your makeup, pretty much that's 98% of it versus the 2%. That's an amazing thing, because I want to say this now, because that's amazing, but at what point do you feel like it's too much? Because now you always forgiven. Has it been times, obviously, now people just taking advantage. So where does that cutoff come for anybody out there that's the same way like you, but where does that cutoff come?
That was the hard part.
Okay.
The hard part is being that way. And I think when I was about 4 or 5 years old, I remember a friend of mine did something to me. And I remember, you know, I missed my friend so much we wasn't talking, but I wanted to talk to him. And I remember his reaction to what occurred, it wasn't the same as mine. Like, I had this heart where, like, okay, let's move on type of thing. And he didn't feel that way. That was the first time I realized, because I always thought that my heart or everybody else's heart was the same as mine. And so I grew and evolved and matured, and then began to realize that, man, that's a great characteristic. But anytime you have a strength can also be a weakness.
Correct.
If you don't have balance. So I had to learn over the years how to balance it, because people would take advantage. People would realize I'm a giving person. If you need something, I'll give it. Money, whatever it is, myself, my time, I'm giving. So people would realize that and take advantage. So I had to start going by not just experience, but people's vibes,
Correct.
People's energy, and coming to the point where I start realizing, is this person's energy giving me the type of response that I should be forgiving, or I should be lenient or merciful.
Correct.
Because everyone is not always deserving of that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then people start taking it as a weakness. And when people take it as a weakness, I will admit there's a little lashing out, and then there's sometimes there's resentment for that.
Correct.
because people take your weakness, your or which is really a strength, as a weakness,
Correct.
and they treat you as such. And so it really just, as time went on, I had to learn, equilibrium, balance, how to be merciful, how to be lenient, how to be forgiving, but also read people's energy and their intentions.
Correct.
And that's like just studying human nature and studying people's vibe. I just start going off of that.
So you're saying it's about all the forgiving of other people. So with that, this is what I get out of that. You're forgiving all these other people for different things. Your heart is obviously a pure thing to do that. But now when we talk about forgiveness, obviously people taking advantage of you. When do you forgive yourself? Because now this takes some level of accountability, because you're the reason at the same time that people take advantage. I've been very forgiving. I'm forgiving everybody else, so they take advantage. But now you sit back, you have to take some level of accountability. So when is the process of you forgiving yourself?
I mean, that's the other hard part. The other hard part is not really forgiving the others, it's really forgiving yourself. Forgiving yourself for making these mistakes, forgiving yourself when there were signs and instances where a person kind of showed you who they were and you didn't listen.
Correct.
Because once again, you're thinking everybody else is like you.
Correct.
And they think the way you think and they feel the way you feel.
Facts.
And as a consequence of that, that's how you treat people. That's how you judge them. But the reality is everybody doesn't.
Correct.
So I had to start forgiving myself. And like you said, take personal accountability. This is what Thank God I'm Free is all about. Stop blaming other people for circumstances that I got myself into.
Correct.
So if I trusted you and you wasn't trustworthy, then at the end of the day, even though I've given you my trust, the question is, did you really earn my trust? And if you didn't, that falls back in my lap.
Correct.
I got to now say, okay, let me stop being a certain way. Let me be more pragmatic about my approach in giving and being lenient and being merciful and being the kind of person that's philanthropic and charitable. Be more calculated about it. Not just, and being a free spirit, that's the difficult part of it. I'm a free spirit.
Yeah.
But at the same time, once again, balance. How do you have these great characteristics as a human being and then balance these characteristics so that, because you're living in a world that's not necessarily who and what you are.
Correct.
And you got to deal with the world as it is.
Yeah, I'm loving this conversation. So there's a few things I want to take out of there. I want to come back to balance. But before I go to balance, what do you say was the hardest part? For forgiving the people, because they both hard. So forgiving the other people and then also taking that accountability for yourself and now forgiving yourself. Which one is the hardest? If any, I don't think it's a wrong answer. Obviously, I feel like
I don't know if either one is the hardest.
Okay.
I think sometimes forgiving yourself, because sometimes you're your greatest critic.
Correct.
And when you make mistakes, and then I'm a perfectionist by nature too.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
When
So
was
I like
you born?
I was born in July.
Oh, July.
I'm a
Okay.
Cancer, man.
Oh man.
Yeah. So
I got you.
So I'm a perfectionist by nature. Anything that I want to do, I don't want it just to be excellent. I want to make it as perfect as possible.
Correct.
So my interaction with human beings, my interaction with life in general, we're not going to be perfect, but I'm striving for that level of perfection. And so when I do something like, oh man, that was dumb, that was stupid.
Yeah.
Forgiving myself, because at the end of the day, I'm like, it hurts me more. I actually hurt myself more than the person hurt me, because I put myself in that situation, that predicament. So I would say forgiving me is the most difficult thing, because you got to live with that choice.
Yeah,
you got to live with the ramifications. You got to live with the harm that it caused you, maybe family, and or it could have caused me economic turmoil.
Correct, exactly.
And I got to live with that.
Yeah.
And I got to be stuck in that situation, and then got to get myself out of it.
Yeah.
And reverse engineer how I got into it. That's a process. So forgiving ourselves is I think is really difficult, man. It's therapeutic to do it. And I think from a holistic standpoint, we gotta practice forgiving self, even more so than forgiving others. Because I think that is the greatest challenge.
Correct. Agreed.
We beat ourselves up in the head, and
Facts.
we don't really like lighten up. Like sometimes you mess up. That's what life is, right? And you continue to kick yourself in the backside, and in your head you really just you're lessening your value and you're cheapening your existence when you don't forgive self. So I think the impact of that is even greater than forgiving others.
Yeah, bro. I'm glad you said that because, yeah, that definitely says a lot. And I'm glad you said that because, again, it definitely is hard. It's harder on ourselves. And like I said, I said it was no wrong answer because there's no wrong answer to that. So you saying that actually brought me another level of perspective, and I appreciate that. So, and this is what I also want to say. I'm glad we can have a conversation, a dialogue. I like to say dialogue over conversation, right?
Right.
I'm glad anybody can have a dialogue, even me and you, and we could disagree on something. So, not saying I disagree on this, but you said you don't like the term "to each his own." I don't like the term balance. So I want you to go in and explain why you don't like to each his own, and then I'll explain balance. But at the end of the day, I want people to understand it's okay. We could disagree. It's great to see other people's perspectives, and y'all can then take that knowledge, and then you can create a new perspective that makes sense for you.
Well, I believe in this human connectedness.
Okay.
And I believe that anything that I do, my lifestyle, my state of mind, my disposition, my attitude,
Correct.
my characteristics affect not only myself, but affect others in a positive or a negative fashion.
Correct.
So to each his own, I can come in here and just say, the interview started 30 minutes late.
Yeah.
I could have had an attitude about that,
Correct.
right? And I could have came in here, all flamboyant and acting, angry that you wasted my time, yada, yada, yada. Or I can give you some grace and say that the brother is doing something positive and he, is just running behind.
Correct.
I can come here with that energy and upset
Correct.
you, upset the cameraman, upset everybody up in here.
And then no shoot.
And then no shoot, right?
Yeah.
So, and then it affect you, and you might have somebody coming in after this.
Yeah.
And affect you in a negative sense where the next person that comes in here, the vibe is kind of off because energy is never created or destroyed, right?
Exactly.
It merely moves from one place to the next.
Correct.
So I can believe that treating people in an unjust way, being mean, ill-spirited towards you, I can believe that's a viable lifestyle. But that's going to affect you. That's going to affect the people that I come in contact with.
Correct.
So I don't believe as humans that we can have an existence on this planet and it don't affect nobody. It's because I think a certain way, it doesn't affect anyone. And going to what we talked about earlier about, the Supreme Court justices. It's say only 9 people in America believe that, you shouldn't be able to have the right to have an abortion. And now what my position is on that matters not. The reality is these people have obviously held that opinion in their hearts and their minds for decades. They got to the point where they went through the system, became judges, now the Supreme Court justice. And 9 people are affecting millions of people's lives. So even though they have a right to feel that way, that's their own perception or perspective about abortion, it's still affecting hundreds of millions of people.
Correct.
So to each his own is a flawed concept to me, for my understanding of it, because at the end of the day, if I come in here and have a really great spirit, great attitude, this dialogue that we're having here, this conversation is going to go along accordingly. But like I said, if I come in here, all mean and grumpy because it ran a little late, everybody in this room is going to be affected by that, including myself.
And then, I don't want to cut you off.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I agree with that. And I think also sometimes it could be a reflection of ourselves because there's been times where the roles could be reversed and we look back and we're like, okay, I probably did this too. So let me not feel like just because the rose is not in my position right now or the ball not in my court that I could be quickly to judge because that could happen. And I'm guilty of that too. I don't know if anybody else could say that, but I don't mind saying that I'm guilty. So you might have felt that way, which would be a reason and a valid reason to feel that way. But at the same time, the roles probably have been reversed in the past at some point, or even maybe reversed in the future because not even intentionally, but things happen, life happens, and things get moved around. That's just life. So, and that's just part of us also evolving. So I appreciate you sharing that. So as far as with balance though, right? I don't feel like you can have balance in a sense because at some point something's going to lack. I feel like we can use balance to some degree. It just depends on when we can use it necessarily. But for the most part, I don't like the word because it's like, how can we have balance when obviously you can't give everything 100%. You're gonna lack in somewhere. So trying to figure out that balance is like, it's more better to be unbalanced, and unbalanced is really the new balance, if that makes sense. And sometimes you got to be unbalanced to eventually, quote unquote, get balance. So I just feel like everything can't have 100%. You can't balance everything because I don't know. Are you a father?
Yes, I am.
Oh, you are.
Yeah.
How many do you have?
3.
3? Oh,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Yes,
Hey,
sir.
well, we're gonna touch on that next. Just for example, like building taking care of your family, doing this, like, let's, for example, it's been a story. A father is like, let's just say he's working, right? He's working, taking care of all the household bills. That means he's out working. He doesn't have the opportunity to sit back and make sure he's in the house all the time playing with the children.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point, something's going to lack, but in a sense of it's for the better or whatever. So I just feel like their balance could be a touchy subject. Just same way, obviously, you feel like to each his own can be.
Mm-hmm.
It could vary. So
I don't think that we can balance things 100%.
okay.
I think balance is a juggling act.
Mm-hmm.
I think you know in your example of being married, yes, I could be a hardworking husband, and I could be out conquering the world,
Correct.
and providing income and security for my family. But by the same token, I have to be cognizant of the fact that I got these children and a wife that also need my spiritual, emotional, and psychological support. So balance don't necessarily mean that I give the same amount of time, giving spiritual, emotional, and psychological support to my wife and my children, but it means that I don't put the work and my responsibility on the physical above all these other aspects, because as humans, we're more than just physical, right?
Correct.
So it means that I acknowledge that they need me in this area. My wife needs me. My children need me.
Correct.
Okay? So I got to make some time for this. I can't just use the fact that I'm working, I'm a hard worker, and I'm trying to put money on the table and food on the table as an excuse to neglect my wife and neglect my children because they have needs beyond just the physical.
Agreed.
So balance means to me that I work, make the money, put food on the table, but then when I got the time, talk to my wife,
of course,
provide the emotional support. If she has some type of goal or agenda that she wants to accomplish, I support her in that. My son or my daughter, they need X, Y, and Z. I got to show up to a baseball game sometime. I got to go to a ballet sometime. I got to be able to take them to practice sometimes. I can't always use the fact that I'm busy as an excuse to neglect other areas of my responsibility. So balance just means just putting the right amount of energy and time into work, wife, children, and the family.
Beautifully stated. So with that being said, I'm gonna probably name this episode "The Balance of To Each His Own." You feel it? It levels out. I like that. I agree. I like that we could. I don't know how you feel about agree to disagree. That could be a whole nother topic. But I want to go back to the children. So you said you have 3. How old are they, if you don't mind me asking?
And my children are 29.
Oh, they're adults. But they obviously still your babies.
27 and 25.
Okay, 25.
Now you just reveal how young I am now.
My apologies. My apologies, bro. No, so what's been the process of that? Now, obviously, your father instilled this name into you and obviously those principles. So now let's correlate to you instilling that times 10 into your children. How has that process been?
Man, so just like my father did for me, gave me a great name to strive toward, I did the same thing for my children. And I gave them names that, were challenging to live up to. Something that meant something so that they could have a sense of value just by the name itself. Sometimes it's the name gives you value.
Correct.
And it's not easy because is being magnanimous, being kind and forgiveness. It's so easy for me to be. I could be just the opposite of that.
Correct. Yeah.
I can be a person with
Which
a hard heart.
Crazy.
I can be crazy. I can be a lot of different things.
That would be crazy.
Right? So I gave them names, and then taught them what their names meant, and
Beautiful.
I emphasize the importance of living up to that name, not to have a great name and not live up to it.
Correct.
Like, what if your name was Superman, right?
Yeah, and you're not living
and
up
you was
to it.
lame, you know what I'm saying? You was some little lame guy. Your name
Yeah.
was Superman.
That's horrible.
That's
man.
horrible, right?
Yeah, that's a bad life. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah, you do the name
Yeah.
of a bad service,
Yeah.
man. So I instilled that in an early age. That it's important to live up to that name and to express what those attributes mean in your personal life.
No, that's beautiful, bro. Because even me, the reason I asked that, because I'm a father. I have one, and I don't think I'm having any more. Because this process of raising a child, man, it's a beautiful thing. Don't get me wrong. I don't want anybody to feel like it's not. But obviously, as a father, obviously with much more experience on me. Obviously, you're young, because obviously I know this reveals your age, but that's super young still.
Right.
It's a process, and I always like to ask, obviously, guests that obviously are fathers, so I can get experience in the sense of getting those intangibles, knowledge and lessons. That way I can make sure I'm being a better father, because even after day one, my son came out, I caught myself beating myself up, like trying to figure out like how to do everything perfect. So
Right.
even when you said you're a Cancer, I'm a Libra, the best sign out. But we'll just discuss that later. It's like a process of learning, like I want to be the best father I can be. So if I feel like I make one mistake, I'm beating myself up on it. And then it's like, even in the process of trying to do better and make great decisions, sometimes those great decisions, obviously they're out of love and out of better, they can still be mistakes. So trying to find that middle ground, for the lack of a better word.
Balance.
Yeah. You see, I ain't say it though. So that middle ground, it's been a process. So I just want to say, what could you say to myself, but also even a young father out there that's watching this, that just had a child, maybe trying to figure out, or not in the best financial situation, don't have the best mental state of mind, don't have the support. What could you say to them?
Give yourself grace, man.
Okay.
Especially if you were like me. I was raised without a father.
Okay.
My father gave me a great name. Still raised without a father. So you got to give yourself grace. And be patient with being a parent. There's no manual out here on parenthood.
Correct.
And to teach you how to have a flawless relationship with your children. Like everything else, your relationship with your children, like life, it's a roller coaster ride. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. Because as you're changing and you're growing, you're evolving, your children are too. And there's been times where me and my children were closer, and there's been times where we've been more distant. And, you have a little anxiety behind that. Of course, you want to be the perfect father. But you got to give your children grace as well, and give them time to grow and evolve, to sometimes catch up to where you at mentally, spiritually, and morally. They might not necessarily be there. You're trying to get them there, and you're trying to rush that process.
Correct.
But how did I get to this point where I evolved through my experience, right?
Experience.
I came through some experiences that gave me the state of mind, that gave me the mindset that I have. And so I had to learn to allow my children to do the same thing. They're not going to learn what I learned just by me teaching it and me saying it. They're going to learn sometimes by having to go through the exact same thing and experience what I experienced, and then they'll come to a greater appreciation of who I am as a father in time. You know what I'm saying? Time is what is going to, give them a better perspective about life and everything that I've taught them. So give not only yourself grace as a father, because I made many mistakes as a father, but also give your children grace as well, and give them space to grow and evolve on their own time.
I just want to soak that up, because you said a lot there that's very impactful. So yeah, I just want to soak that up. That was amazing explanation, honestly, and I'm definitely gonna be taking that advice, because hey, like you said, obviously with your experience, many more years on me, I just want to say thank you, for the lack of a better word, and I want to back up to the one thing you said in there. Obviously your father gave you a great name, right? And that your name that you live up to and are continue to live up to, and obviously in your own right. How does that affect you, knowing he gave you this great name and then he's not there, unless he correct me if I'm wrong, was it intentional or unfortunate situation that happened where he wasn't present?
I would say a little bit of both.
Okay.
Even with that, I had to give him grace. I had to give my mother grace. Things happen in life.
Correct.
And two people don't agree.
Correct.
And, you know, they don't see eye to eye. And unfortunately, the children are the casualty of war.
Mm-hmm.
I've experienced that personally. You know, so I had to give my father grace as well because I went through the same thing.
You see,
There's what they call parental alienation. And a lot of men suffer from that, particularly black men. And it doesn't necessarily get discussed because men in general, we hold things in.
Correct.
We could be going through the greatest tragedy of life and nobody knows but us. And then we, get depressed behind it. We go through a bunch of anxiety.
Correct.
We drink, we smoke, we do things to,
Ignore
quote unquote, ignore the pain that we're suffering. And so, at the end of the day, when you're a father and there's a mother involved and you all don't get along, a lot of times the father gets the brunt end of that. And we don't get a chance to have the same influence over the child because a lot of times a mother may think, the child should be with me for whatever reason. And men don't necessarily get that time and energy and we don't get to put our stamp or our imprint on our children the way we would like to. Correct. Because we haven't had the opportunity to do so.
Unfortunately, yeah.
So, yeah.
So with that being said, I'm glad you said that because I obviously didn't know that. So what could you share with somebody? Obviously, you've been through that. I'm sure it's in a better place now. Obviously, they're older. What could you give a young father, black father that's going through that type of situation right now to let them know, like, it's going to work itself out? Obviously, because right now they could be in a place where mentally, like, yo, I don't know how this is going. It could feel, it's obviously like you said, could be trauma, like a traumatic situation. So, what could you give a young father right now that's going through that to let them know, like, yo, it's gonna be okay?
It's hard to say that everything is gonna be okay when you got this love for these little entities that you brought into the world and you're not seeing them.
Correct.
Sometimes fathers, the children are taken to another state and you don't get to see them at all. You get to talk to them at all. Man, what I would say is be very patient. I would say seek some form of counseling and therapy. Talk to someone about it. Don't hold all that pain inside.
Correct.
And find constructive ways in dealing with it. It's easy to drink, it's easy to get high, it's easy to, to engage in a lot of sex. And a lot of times men, again, we do things and we don't know necessarily why we're doing these things because we sometimes don't understand the magnitude of our own pain.
Correct.
And we're just doing it in the moment, but in reality, it's something in the back of our subconscious mind that's really affecting us that we just kind of push back.
Keep pushing it back.
Push it further and further back, but we're doing things on the surface that people misinterpret and judge us by, which is actually just a manifestation of what's going on with us internally. So I would definitely say seek counseling, my relationship with my creator, God, and, be patient.
With yourself.
With yourself, with the circumstances. And man, it's that's a hard one.
Yeah. No, and that's what we're here to talk about because one, this is definitely therapeutic for me. Obviously, I've never been in that situation and I'm thankful I'm not. But at the same time, I know it is people out there. And like I said, when it comes to evolving, it's like all these aspects are vital. So I want to touch on the topics that nobody's talking about from men, from women, no matter what it may be, to show people like, it's another side to all of this. Sometimes we in life, we feel like it's the worst situation at that moment. Then we go on and we're like, it wasn't even that bad. And then another situation like that happens where it's like, we feel like it's the worst and then we get past it. So I want people to see and use examples such as yourself to show them like, yo, no matter where you at right now, no matter the situation, you can overcome it. So using exact situations like yourself and what you've been through, I think that's beautiful. Even though it's never the perfect answer, I think it could plant the seed to find the perfect answer for that individual. So,
well, evolving through experience, thank God I'm free. It's like you can go through the most traumatic and painful situations. And, you wonder why. And there is a why.
That part.
And the why doesn't always manifest and materialize when you want it to.
Correct.
You might want to know why I'm going through this right now in this moment in time. But be patient with yourself. Be patient with the process, because the why, when you have a positive mindset, when I've always believed that everything that I've gone through served a purpose. I always had that in the back of my mind. It's difficult to be going through this painful and this trauma and still believe that, because it doesn't appear that way. But if you can hold that into your mind, eventually you'll begin to see how the trauma, the pain is actually serving a greater good. And what that experience did for me was, man, I got to be the most resilient person on the planet Earth.
Correct.
You can tell me no 1,000,000 times, I'm going to try 1,000,001. You're not going to frustrate me to the point where I'm going to give up. So even though I suffered parental alienation, I refused to give up. The resiliency that came as a part of that, going through that experience, is part of my life mission, it's part of my life purpose, because if I can go through that and not let that destroy me, not let that conquer me, there is nothing in this life form that can destroy me. There's nothing that can frustrate my state of mind, the way I think, my perspective. You can't frustrate it. That person tried to frustrate it in every way imaginable and couldn't, and failed. At the end of the day, I got the victory, but it's going through the emotions of all that, the years of going through something. The thing is, you have to realize that God always uses pain and difficulty and frustration to shape us.
Correct.
The better you have a relationship with God, the more you know how God operates, you know how life operates. So when things happen to you, the freedom becomes, the evolution comes, when I know that the Creator is using this for a divine purpose. I don't know right now. Like, I have no idea why God is letting me go through this experience. But the belief that He's going to eventually show me why I went through everything that I went through, and the beauty that comes along with that, becoming this evolved species that my family and friends have never seen before. They never seen nobody like me, because I've gone through things that would have broke them, and I didn't let it break me. I kept striving. I kept saying, okay, get back up. I failed. Get back up again. And so the resiliency that came as a consequence of that experience, it's what, thank God, I'm free is about. Because I'm free that I allow things that hurt to make me weak, to frustrate me, to make me like, okay, you know, I just might as well give up and do what everybody else is doing. No, I want the hard route, because the hard route is going to shape and mold me in a way that nobody's ever seen before.
Right. And go ahead.
And I knew that was a part of my mission. And then as you're going through something, somebody else is going through that as well. I ain't the only person that's experienced that. So now I can teach, as a consequence of my experience, how to make it through it, how to survive it, how to be patient, how to stay in the struggle, how to sometimes just let go for a while. Sometimes I have to let go and not try to enforce my will on the situation, because sometimes that makes it worse. Sometimes just let it go. Okay, I ain't seeing them for 4 or 5 months. Okay. Okay, God, maybe I need to work on myself. Maybe God's giving me this time to work on a business or do something else in a positive fashion, so I can take that negative energy and transmute it and turn it into something positive, versus letting this experience break me and make me bitter. Like, I'm too, my spirit is too generous and kind to be walking around with this bitterness, animosity, even though there's times where I had some of that.
Of course.
But I had to realize I had to purge myself for that. And say, okay, God, you showing me something. What is it? And what it is, a lot of times, is that God is showing you that there's a work that you need to do with yourself. And He's allotting you that time that I would have had to spend necessarily with my children and taking them here, taking them there. It gave me time to really self-reflect and find myself. So the person that was doing this to me may be trying to hurt me, maybe trying to break me, but they're really serving my greater good. They're actually helping me, not knowing it. Their intention is to hurt me, but God is using that animosity they have towards me, that energy they have towards me, to make me a greater servant for good. And as a consequence, that person was just my friend unknowingly. You helped shape me. You made me this resilient and didn't even try to, right? So now who's the one getting the last laugh?
Facts.
See, you was laughing when you was keeping my children away from me, but now I'm like, man, I'm so strong, can't nothing break me. I am Superman right now.
That part.
See what I'm saying?
Man, we could drop the mic. We're gonna go ahead and wrap up. Hey, you just said it all, honestly. We're gonna wrap up now. So, bro, you just said so much in there, and that's why I didn't want to cut you off. Bro, that was a lot, like, honestly. And I can't wait for this to drop, honestly, because what you just said is gonna touch so many people. And before I even say the next part, I was gonna say one of the key things you said in there, it was multiple key things, but like you said, divine purpose. People don't understand that divine timing is everything. Thinking versus us. Although we obviously are very spiritual beings or whatever, we obviously have a different level of energy that we possess and can understand and transmute or whatever. But the divine timing is nothing like it. So for you to say that the divine purpose, that covers the entire realm, the entire umbrella of what this is about. So with that being said, I want to say, bro, you definitely, I know we said it even before the cameras of what your goal is, obviously with Thank God I'm Free. But one of the things you said is motivational speaking. And not just motivational speaking. I don't even like to say motivational speaking, but I guess the better thing I would say executional speaking, because what you just said, it allows somebody not just motivate them, but it could really tell somebody, yo, they can definitely execute. People can get all the motivation in the world, but if you don't execute, it doesn't matter. So what you saying and the energy I feel, and I'm sure obviously Trey feels it, like, bro, you definitely deserve to be on the stage, because I can feel the energy. I can see the passion in your eyes. I can see how you was articulating yourself. Bro, it was great way how you articulated everything you just said. So you definitely will be on stages, no doubt about it, obviously, if you're not already. And your story is definitely even more going to be magnified, because what you just said was like a lot. It was very, very tasteful, and it was, like I said, it's a lot to digest, but what you said couldn't have been said even more beautiful. So I just want to give you your flowers for that as well.
Appreciate that. I think one of the things that we need to get across to people in general, humanity, is that God doesn't create anything without divine purpose.
That part.
He doesn't do anything with a real great reference point, like creating you, creating me. You know, God just wasn't bored. You know what I'm saying? We talk about intentionality. Ain't nobody more intentional than God. So the fact that you are here, I am here, and we've had all of our experiences in life, God foresaw all of this. So everything that I've experienced, everything you're experiencing or have experienced, God foresaw all of it. So in foreseeing something, you know where it's going.
Correct.
And so if God knows where it's going, the thing is, you got to trust God enough and yourself that you're experiencing this for a greater cause. The problem becomes is that humans don't necessarily get taught what our value is. And if you had no value, then God never would have created you. Like, that's the insult to God, to create something that has no value, that has no utility. You have value, and God wants to use your life experiences as a utility to inspire other people, to show other people who've gone through similar circumstances, similar trauma, similar, things that you've gone through, how it can be overcome, so that you don't think it can't be overcome. There's nothing impossible in this universe, right? There's no circumstance that we have gone through that we can't overcome. The mindset has to be that it's doable. The mindset has to be that nothing can stop me, that you cannot frustrate me. That has to be the mindset. And you got to understand that it's all serving something in the future. You can't see it now. You don't know now, but you just got to keep living. Correct. You got to keep managing the pain, managing the experience, and understanding that this is going somewhere. And when you keep that faith, when you keep that conviction, and you stay grounded there, man, you become a monster, man. Like this, like the pain, you start eating it up. Yeah. Like it don't eat you up. The frustration don't eat you. You eat up the pain. You eat up the circumstance. You devour it because it becomes a part of you. I like that. And you destroy it because at the end of the day, what I think here gotta manifest out here, eventually.
That part.
It don't happen overnight.
We create our reality. Yep.
But it gotta manifest out here. If I think it gotta manifest.
Correct.
If I keep thinking something and I keep believing something, it's a matter of time before God's gonna reward me for that, and the universe gonna just kick in. And all these blessings gonna start unfolding because I stayed the faith. You know what I'm saying? I stayed true to myself. I stayed true to my conviction. It's only when you give up or you weakened by your experiences.
Man, yo, you did it again. Bro, I can't wait to chop up this episode because you have said so many things and you articulated it in such a great way. And I think, again, that's going to really touch people, not just mentally, but their hearts, their spirits. And like, this is exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I know this episode, we've been trying to get the scheduling with us, but I'm definitely glad we could finally get it in because even on the phone, obviously, I always have conversations with any guest before. That way it helps me pretty much create questions. But sometimes the truth is, to be transparent, sometimes I don't even get to all the questions because I allow the conversation to flow. And I would say that because I'm loving how the conversation has flowed versus the questions that was prepared and what things I want to ask. It was divine timing, even down to how late we got started. Unfortunately, it not even unfortunately, divine timing because everything happens for a reason. So I'm just loving how it's flowing because it's doing how it's supposed to overall. Right. And you already covered, thank God I'm free. I know we can go into it more. I was going to ask you that next, but I want to say this. I know how we met, and we met in a place of, obviously, I would say better than ourselves. You obviously know. Everybody knows my favorite spot. I'm going to go on record. I'm going to get a check eventually, y'all. I don't promote just anything, but I'm going to definitely get a check. Upbeat. One of my favorite spots because it goes into better than ourselves. I personally eat that because one is mostly organic. So everything is organic for the most part versus us not trying to better ourselves. So eating better, thinking better. But just as far as the eating better, that's where we met and we was in the environment. So I'd say all that to say, being in the right environment, you meet the people that you want. You meet the people by becoming who you want to be or whatever. So at the end of the day, you becoming that, you meet the right people in these type of environments. So everybody, the people that's the same people, no disrespect, but it's also the truth. So if disrespect is taken, maybe they should reevaluate. But the same people that I feel is constantly eating Upbeat is not the same people that's going to eat McDonald's. Not the same people that's going to eat Burger King. It's putting yourself in the right environments to better yourself in every aspect. Like I said, even down to no matter what you label yourself as, pescatarian, vegan, you can do what you feel is best for you as long as you know you're trying to better yourself. And if that's the goal in mind and that's the focus in mind, hey, I'm going to commend you regardless. Yeah. So
I agree with that. I think your eating choices is a reflection of self-love. And, the more time and energy and effort you put into that, it's just showing that you love yourself. And it's no disregard to people that eat meat or necessarily have unhealthy life choices. But as you're evolving through experience and you're freeing yourself, you begin to realize that how I treat my body, every relationship that I have is going to be a reflection of my relationship with self.
Correct.
So if I don't take care of myself, if I don't value myself, I can't value a friend, a significant other. I can't value my children. I can't value anyone. So the higher I place value on me, and the more value I put on me and place on my life, that in turn, I'm going to replace it on other people.
Correct.
And so I recognize value in you because I recognize value in me. But if I see no value in me and you got value, I'm not going to see it because I don't even see it in myself.
Correct. So
value and self-respect and self-love, it starts right here. And you can tell a person that loves themselves because how they treat other people. Because you are a reflection of me. Correct. Whether I realize it or not, you are a reflection of me. Correct. So when people, what I realized, one of my ways of being empathetic and forgiving toward people who have harmed me and tried to harm me is that you're getting angry at them, but that person don't even love themselves, man. They hate themselves. So I'm getting mad at them for hating themselves and getting all, emotional that they didn't talk to me right or whatever. Yeah. But the reality is that's just a reflection of who they are and how they see themselves.
Correct. Exactly.
So I'm not going to get offended because I know if you don't treat another human being right, you hate yourself.
That part.
The real test for whether or not you love someone or love yourself is how you treat other people.
Facts.
So That's one of the things I kind of figured out about racism. Like, stop internalizing racism. Because if a person mistreat you based upon how you look and your skin tone, that just means they hate themselves.
That's a fact.
So the racist person, I can have a little empathy toward them. Like, man, he's tripping. He hates himself. He hates himself. She hates herself. I ain't gonna internalize that because now I realize that person just don't have a good relationship with themselves, and it's reflecting by the way they try to treat me.
Yeah, facts.
So I deflect that. Oh, as long as you don't get in my personal space, you don't harm me.
We good.
We good, right? You ain't gonna really bother me.
Wish they could have that melanin.
Yeah, right. You know what I'm saying? Wish.
Nah,
don't be mad at me.
Yeah, bro, that's crazy because that's actually one of my favorite quotes. So Emory Jones, I'm definitely gonna have him on the episode one day. Obviously, I don't know if you know who he is, but amazing story. Obviously, Jay-Z, right-hand man, really. But he actually has a quote. He's like, what we don't like in others, we can often find in ourselves. So that's why even myself, I always try to give grace to others because, again, like you said, reflection. I said it earlier on the episode. It's a reflection. So if I'm mad at somebody else for something they did, or just in general, I'm coming off a certain way, it's not that it's that person. It's a reflection of me. So if I'm mad at you for whatever you said or whatever you did, it's not really you. It's a reflection of me. And then once I looked inside and realized that, it allowed me to really truly evolve through my experience, through life in every aspect, because experience can mean so many different things. But that's why I say evolving through experience. So when I realized that there's a reflection of me, the level of solitude, the level of peace, this level of elevation overall that came from that, bro, is nothing that can compare to that.
Mind-boggling.
So it is definitely mind-boggling, and I think if more people would understand that, I think that's definitely would be the key to making this world a better place. Obviously, starting with ourselves. So, like I said, it's a reflection. So I'm definitely glad you said that, bro. You said it right perfectly, man.
And it may not necessarily be a reflection of who you are. It's a reflection of what's potentially inside of you.
Okay, I can see. Okay, I like that.
Because sometimes you might not necessarily be that.
Yeah.
But the potential for that is in you.
Or was it? Or
it could have been.
Could have been. Yeah.
Who you were before, and it's a reminder. Or sometimes I look at it like, sometimes you get mad at a person for not keeping their word, right? And sometimes I don't keep mine. And it's just a reminder, like, work harder on that aspect of me.
Yeah.
So once again, I can point the finger to the person and not like what I see in them, but the universe is just a mirror.
Yeah.
People are just a mirror of what is already in us, potentially, or what we are already guilty of already.
Correct.
And so either or, I think, when you look at that, first of all, let's do some self-reflecting.
Correct. Exactly.
Let me see if I'm guilty of that too.
Yeah.
And I ain't always on time.
That part.
Maybe
divine time. You on divine time.
Exactly.
We started on divine time.
But I ain't always there when I say I'm gonna be there. Even though
things happen. Yeah.
Things happen. Yeah. I get it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's either something that you're currently guilty of or something that you have the potentiality of manifesting. That you might be on guard. Okay, since I don't like that in others, which is easy to point out. Let me see if that is an inkling of that inside of me. And if it is, let me do the internal work. Instead of getting mad at that person for being that way, let me do the internal work and correct that potentiality or that flaw in myself and let that be why that happened.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the universe, God, the creator, is trying to show me something about me that I have not acknowledged or I didn't understand or I didn't see.
Facts, bro. It couldn't have been said better. And before we transition, I want to ask you something about your children. But just to stay on this topic real quick, I'm glad you said that because it's like you said, even with that, it's still a level of accountability. Even when we are a reflection of something we don't like, or we on the opposite, it's still a level of accountability. And I think that's a beautiful thing too. So even today, obviously, something was out of our control on why we got started late, from whether that was an accident, who knows, it doesn't matter. And just trying to be on time. But even with that, it's a level of accountability that allows us to, sometimes I think it could be a little negative, taking too much accountability, but I think for the most part, it can be the more positive. Like you said, it's a reflection, but it also allows us to, look, maybe I need to focus a little more within. So in the future this doesn't happen, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the one on the other side of the stick. So at the end of the day, I just wanted to say that because, again, divine timing, of course, but it's definitely a level of learning lessons within all of it
Mm-hmm.
overall. So as far as what I want to ask about the children, because obviously I know I said you're instilling into them. So tell me something, or I guess from overall stuff they've instilled into you.
Oh man,
No, great question.
that's a great question. Well, my son was really young, 7 years old.
Okay.
Was going through a divorce,
Mm-hmm.
and I picked him up one day,
Yeah.
and he hadn't been seeing me. He could see the nature of
Attention.
my relationship with his mother, my ex-wife. He saw it. He he knew it, and I wanted to console him in a way that I wasn't neglecting him. You know, your daddy still loves you. I'm here for you. You know, so on and so forth. Because I didn't want him to have any ambivalence as about how I feel about him.
Correct.
And I said, your daddy's going through a lot right now. And I can't talk to you about it. You know, one of these days I will talk, but I love you, yada, yada, yada. And he said, but Daddy, are you going to stop praying? I was like, wow. And at that time, I had not been praying as much. You know, my son impressed that upon me at 7 years old. And what it taught me is that, you know, parenting, we tend to think it's more about us shaping our children.
Correct.
In which it is. It's a lot about it. It has a lot to do with that. But it's also being shaped by your children.
Beautiful thing.
Like they have as much impact on you, or they should have as much impact on you as you have on them.
That part.
And if you think that you're the teacher, you're the sole source of guidance and instruction, let me disabuse you and let you realize that your children are here to give you guidance and instruction as well.
Correct.
And you can't be a good parent and not listen to your children. There's divine guidance through your children that, because they're still innocent. They're unadulterated. We get corrupted as adults. We start thinking we grown and programmed. They're still pure and innocent. And so a lot of times you can get information from your children that's directly from God, man. And what he said to me is pray. And at that time I wasn't praying as much. But my son instilled that in me.
Yeah.
He's taught me like, look, I'm here to teach you too. I'm here to give you understanding too.
What's his name?
His name is Jalil.
I like that.
I'm here to give you some understanding too, right? And so what I've learned is that one of the things that they have instilled in me also is to listen more as a parent, and let them sometimes teach you how to be a better parent of them as individuals. Because you can't. I got 3 children. You can't parent them all the same way. I got a certain methodology that I use, but at the end of the day, they're individuals, and they got to teach me how to have a relationship with them personally. And my relationship with one is not the same as the other. They all bring something different to the table. They're all unique. So they taught me to realize the uniqueness in every one of them, in each one of them, and why I have to nurture a relationship with them individually, and I can't just mingle them together.
Yeah.
And do the same way I do. You know, this makes you laugh, but the other person might make him cry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I got to be cognizant of that. I got to be aware that my children are different. And you have to be aware that, you know, you might try to raise them the same way, but the relationship between each one of them is different. And they're going to each bring value to you in a different way. And you got to appreciate that. And then you have to also nurture that.
That part. All the fathers out there, I hope y'all soaking this up. Because it's a beautiful thing what you just said. Again, everything you've been saying, honestly, and I could, like I said, I could feel the passion, I could feel the energy, and it's a beautiful thing. So I'm glad I asked that, because sometimes, like you said, we feel like we're here to teach our children. And I use children specifically because I learned like we don't call children kids, because kids actually means baby goat. So animal. So I make sure I'm even conscious of saying that. So your children teaching that is such a beautiful thing. Because, like I said, we always think that we're here to teach them, but really they could teach us. So, hey, man, I have truly enjoyed this episode. And before we even wrap up, I want to get I want you to shout out the book, and I'm gonna make sure I put it in all the descriptions so where people could buy it. But I want you to tell them about the book real quick. I know you got your book.
The book is called Magnanimous Inspirations, 1,000 of the world's greatest quotes, and you can find it on Amazon.
I'll get the link will definitely be in the description. Where can people follow you at?
You can follow me at Instagram at Magnanymous, and on Thank God I'm Free _ Thank God I'm Free.
And that'll be at the bottom. So with that being said, bro, I just want to say I appreciate having you on again. Definitely a very therapeutic and insightful conversation, dialogue that I've personally enjoyed. And I'm sure it's definitely going to resonate with so many others that they can take the value out of it and apply it to their life, or even share it with somebody and apply it to another friend's life, whoever it may be. And even if it doesn't apply now, the seed is planted now. So when that root eventually pops open and grows, then it grows to the overall goal, the overall message that's meant to be touched for whoever it may be. So if y'all enjoyed another episode of Evolving Through Experience, make sure y'all follow us at Evolving Through Experience. Share it with a friend. If you haven't started evolving today is a great day to start. So if you're not evolving, you're dissolving. So boom, check us out. Peace.
That was good, man.
Appreciate it.